General Hamid Gul headed the military's notorious inter-services intelligence during the Afghan-Soviet War. He is one of the few military officers in Pakistan who have gone public about his sympathies for the militants. Do you think that the Pakistani army can actually succeed in Waziristan?
It is very difficult for Pakistan armed forces to fire against people and to kill them ruthlessly with the Cobra helicopter gunships and with your aircraft, because the people on the other side were saying Pakistan Zindabad, long live Pakistan, and they were saying Allahu Akbar, and this side also they were saying Allahu Akbar. What is the cause? Why were you there? Why were you killing these people? They're your own people. It's very difficult to kill your own people, particularly when you know that it's being done under pall of fear and it is being dictated to you by an external force which is not your friend. So in that situation it becomes very difficult. You can't win. It is unwinnable. Why do you say extremist? I mean, there is nothing extremist in Islam. Ask any Pakistani. I don't know about you, but if I were to ask you honestly, I would say, put your hand on your heart and say, should the Americans win in Afghanistan? Or should they lose? What would be your answer?
Does their losing actually mean a win for Taliban?
Not necessarily. Win for Afghan nation. Win for the spirit of freedom. Win for Islam. Because they say it's an ideological conflict. So win for Islam.
I must admit I found Hamid Gul's views very disturbing. He has a very romantic notion of the Taliban and a totally monolithic and rigid view of Islam. As head of the military's intelligence, I think he must have had many officers under his command who would be influenced by him. And I wonder how many current officers also share his views.
The U.S. was only able to capture or kill one major al-Qaeda figure and no Taliban figures.
You know, the fact is right now today, we don't have any high-ranking Taliban or al-Qaeda. We haven't really captured anybody, one or two on the fringe.
His understanding of the government's actions before 9/11 now fundamentally changed. Thompson decided to take a similar look into what happened in Afghanistan.
The press never looked very closely at how so many of these leaders were able to escape. However, if you piece together a number of different news accounts, we can begin to understand the story.
In August 2005, a story broke that gave Paul Thompson a missing piece of the puzzle. In an exclusive interview with Newsweek, the CIA field commander in Tora Bora during the invasion, Gary Burnson, broke his silence. He explained that his intelligence operatives had tracked bin Laden to Tora Bora.
Mr. Bernstein feels so strongly about getting this story out and getting his book published that he actually resigned 2 years short of retirement from the CIA in order to publish his book.
At the time of this interview, he was required to speak through his attorney until the CIA cleared his book for publication.
At various points in time, they did have, to my understanding, definitive intelligence as to his general location within Tora Bora. I can't go into detail as to the actual sources of the intelligence and the collection methods because those remain classified. However, we had Osama bin Laden essentially cornered in Tora Bora, and for whatever reasons, we did not do what was necessary in order to ensure that he did not escape.
The goal has never been to get bin Laden. Obviously, that's desirable.
Our side in that battle had the enemy surrounded. There were a reported perhaps 8,000 enemy forces in there.
Well, they had the cream of the crop of al-Qaeda caught.
Journalist Seymour Hersh later broke this story in the New Yorker magazine, briefly sparking TV news coverage.
And from there, all of a sudden, one night around Thanksgiving, in the middle of the siege, an air corridor was set up between Kunduz and northern Pakistan. And at night, Pakistani relief planes regularly flew through that corridor.
It was a very orderly, organized thing that armed men would stand on the tarmac waiting for a flight that would come in, and then they would be taken out.
As many as 4,000 or 5,000. They were not only al-Qaeda, but maybe even some of bin Laden's immediate family were flown out on those evacuation
had to be done with the blessing of Musharraf, didn't
Exactly, and of the United States.
When I tell you it comes at the level of Don Rumsfeld, it has to.
What we're describing here is something which would clearly be noticed by the United States. One or two, maybe not, okay? An airlift of these proportions, it certainly would.
This is the most secure space on the face of the earth right now. If someone's moving over Afghanistan, the United States knows about it, clearly.
No plane could fly from Kunduz to Pakistan without getting shot down unless we let it happen. And we let it happen. And I think there's just no other way to explain it.
My take on it basically is the fact that there is some sort of a deal in place between the government of Pakistan and the United States.
I'm not suggesting from this that Pakistan is the quote-unquote solution to 9/11, because it's not. Pakistan is one part in a very complicated story. But the question to me is, who else was involved with al-Qaeda? Was al-Qaeda used as a tool? Just as in the 1980s, the Mujahideen were basically used by the U.S. government.
The biggest crime in American history, orchestrated by Osama bin Laden with funds from the bin Laden and Saudi royal families, plane loads of whom were given special dispensation to leave the U.S. almost immediately afterwards, essentially with no interviews to determine what they might know.
No, they just got up and left. The FBI is not been allowed to put Saudis on a terrorism list up until September 11th. They were not allowed to ask these people any questions.
15 of the 19 hijackers had been Saudi nationals. So in the terrible aftermath of September 11th, surely it was now time to track down those who provided money and support for 9/11 wherever they might be, right? Wrong again, according to former CIA insider Robert Baer.
That's obviously not true, because everybody that financed September 11th is currently in Saudi Arabia and free. I mean, it was sort of like if bin Laden had said, well, you know, it's just a coincidence my guys happened to run into your towers. Are we just going to leave him alone?
The U.S. has relentlessly prosecuted its war on terror, first invading Afghanistan, which unquestionably harbored and supported al-Qaeda, then occupying Iraq, which had virtually nothing to do with Osama bin Laden. But despite all their with us or against us rhetoric, the U.S. has given Saudi Arabia, which spawned the mastermind, the manpower, and the money for 9/11, a free pass. The CIA, for example, ignored intelligence about the hijackers gathered by a number of foreign countries before and after September 11th. The Fifth Estate has obtained documents, like these phone records from German intelligence, showing calls made by key members of the 9/11 plot to Saudi Arabia that the Americans chose not to pursue. And nowhere was that attitude more obvious than in the report of the congressional investigation into the September 11th attacks. The hearings on Capitol Hill began several months after 9/11, focusing on what U.S. intelligence agencies knew or should have known. Eleanor Hill was the committee's chief investigator.
In the fall of 1998, the intelligence community received information concerning a bin Laden plot involving aircraft.
The much-anticipated report was more than 800 pages long. But since it was released, most of the attention has focused on 28 of those pages. One chapter that is almost completely redacted, ordered classified by the White House, and blacked out to the public.
And because they're classified, I can't tell you what's in those pages. I can tell you that the chapter deals with information that our committees found in FBI and CIA files that was very disturbing. It had to do with sources of foreign support for the hijackers, or alleged sources of foreign support for the hijackers.
Yeah. Now, I know it is believed and has been reported that many of those 27 or 28 redacted pages deal with the Saudi relationship to the hijackers, but...
That's what the press has said. I haven't said that.
In fact, others familiar with those 28 blacked-out pages confirm that much of the secret material about foreign support for the 9/11 hijackers does indeed deal with Saudi Arabia. What's more, some of the classified material also appears in unclassified areas of the report. In other words, if you know where to look, there's more than enough there to reveal exactly what it is the Bush administration would prefer the public doesn't know.